Podcast Network Asia.
You are listening to First Metro Securities Philippine Stock Market Weekly podcast, where we feature timely and relevant discussions on the Philippine stock market and the economy in the hope of providing you investing and trading guidance. Here's your host.
Hi investors, this is Anjz from First Metro Securities. If you're looking for trade ideas or just curious which names to keep an eye on, then you're in the right place. Today on Market Bites, I'll walk you through some key points from our latest company update on Robinsons Retail Holdings Inc. or RRHI. We are maintaining our buy call for RRHI, with target price trimmed to 45 pesos, following adjustments to our earnings estimates of negative 10% for FY25F. RRHI posted a 4.3% year-on-year increase in core income to 2.8 billion pesos, excluding last year's BPI RBank gain. This was driven by 5.1% net sales growth to 98.5 billion pesos, benefiting from election-related spending, back-to-school demand, and new store openings. SSG accelerated to 3.9% in 1H25, while gross margin expanded 31 bips to 24.3% on better mix and supplier support. EBIT rose 5.2% year-on-year, though higher interest expenses weighed on net income, which fell 66.9% year-on-year to 2.2 billion pesos. Let's break down some key takeaways from the 1H25 earnings result. First, 2Q was a strong quarter, with EBIT 7% higher year-on-year. Despite the timing of Holy Week, election spending, and the early start of the academic calendar, drove blended SSG to 4.8%. Second, DIY segment may have bottomed out, with SSSG turning positive in May as per management. Third, management reaffirmed full-year guidance of 2 to 4% SSSG, 20 to 30 bips gross margin expansion, and continued store rollout of about plus 130 to 170 stores. Fourth, premium bikes acquisition adds under-penetrated motorcycle market to RRHI's portfolio. The 4.2 billion pesos business, based on 2024 sales, is growing faster than market, albeit with a lower 7.7% margin versus RRHI's blended EBITDA margin of 8.5% in 2024. And fifth, the retirement of treasury shares addresses concerns over future potential dilution risks. Now, let's talk about the key data points we're watching. First, third quarter performance. There's a risk of some downside surprises given that a lot of back-to-school spending was front-loaded, plus the impact of bad weather across Metro Manila and much of Luzon. Second, higher operating expenses, mainly from the recently approved wage hikes. And third, interest expenses. RRHI has issued about 18.5 billion pesos in net debt so far, mostly to fund the buyback of dairy farms shares. So, what would make us more bullish? We'd like to see broad-based solid sales growth across segments, lower debt levels, and ROE expansion that goes beyond pre-Rustan's acquisition levels, which could justify a re-rating of the stock. We also want to see visible benefits from the BPI partnership and, ideally, a higher MSCI index weight following dairy farms share sale. Of course, there are risks to our call. These include slower expansion that could widen the market share gap versus competitors, the loss of synergies in the food segment after dairy farms exit, higher than expected interest expenses, and limited or negligible upside from the BPI partnership. Again, that's a buy call for RRHI at 45 pesos target price. And that's it for today's podcast. Make sure to follow us on our socials for more updates. That's First Metro Securities for our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and FirstMetroSec on TikTok. Thanks for tuning in. Hope this has been helpful.
Thanks for listening to First Metro Securities Philippine Stock Market Weekly podcast. Don't forget to follow us to get first dibs on our new episodes. For more up-to-date market news and info, exclusive content, and the opportunity to connect with your fellow Filipino investors and traders, join facebook.com/groups/FirstMetroSec and be part of the FirstMetroSec family.
FirstMetroSec is providing this podcast as a general market commentary. Reference to any specific security, product, or entity do not constitute as an offer or a solicitation of an offer to buy or sell any financial instruments or to participate in any particular trading strategy. The statements, comments, views, or opinions expressed by the hosts are subject to change without notice, and FirstMetroSec is under no obligation to update, amend, change, or correct any of the statements, comments, views, or opinions expressed. The statements, comments, views, and opinions expressed by the guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the view of FirstMetroSec. FirstMetroSec disclaims any liability arising from reliance on or reference to any information obtained in this podcast.
The views and opinions expressed by the podcast creators, hosts, and guests do not necessarily reflect the official policy and position of Podcast Network Asia, the hosts of the program, or other programs of the network. Any content provided by the people on the podcast are of their own opinion and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything.